over 700 cities and offices, 151 countries, as well in the US, over 20,000 professionals. Our main functions are, I was briefly talking about audit and advisory. The third largest function is tax as well. Obviously, I'm mainly familiar with the audit practice. And you guys might ask the question why public accounting is important today, or I choose public accounting. Well, I put a few points in here on this slide, but tying just to the topic of this presentation, you can see I highlighted globalization and accounting practices, IFRS adoption in the US. I think this is a great opportunity these days for moving internationally, get international experience, as well contribute to the growth of the profession. So it's a really great opportunity. Few main facts about us and why it's worth getting experience at Kpmg or a Big Four firm. And these are Kpmg's core values. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I definitely wanted to share these with you. One thing I really enjoy about working for Kpmg is that we have a great access to leaders. We have a really great management group helping people, developing their professional knowledge, their experience, their career path. We have great partners. We have great partners here in the Norfolk office. We always have open doors and discuss questions with them. It's really an encouraging work environment, which I'm personally really enjoying. A few recognitions that Kpmg received in the past few years. I wanted to bring it to you guys' attention that Kpmg has a CPA incentive program, which I think is a great thing. I joined the US firm after I completed my CPAs, but I think this is absolutely a great program that exists in place. And then, again, just a great place to build your career. A little bit about Kpmg in the Hampton Road. We have a very diverse pool of clients here in Hampton Roads, including both IFRS and US GAAP clients. I primarily work on both of them. In my first year when I came over, I was mainly working on IFRS clients. We also had some special one-off projects on certain engagements. And as time passed by, I'm shifting more time to serve my US GAAP clients. The office opened in 1968, so it has a very significant history. We have over 100 professionals, including 10 partners. Out of the 100 professionals, it's about 60 or 70 people working specifically in audit, serving audit clients. And we have a dominant presence among the Hampton Roads accounting firms. As far as the advisory practice is concerned, we have risk advisory, meaning IT services present in Norfolk. Besides that, we have audit and tax, so basically all of the three largest functions are present here locally. If you guys want to learn more about Kpmg, here's just some information and websites where you can gather some more information. And with that being said, I just would like to open it up for a question and answer session. At the end of the slides, I included my contact information, so if you don't get to ask a question today, you can always just shoot me an email and I will be happy to answer those questions. So with that, I'd like to open up for questions.
So I know that you kind of highlighted different options that are available with the conversions. In terms of your personal experience, what do you think will actually end up happening down the road?
Well, I think that's a very good question Matt was asking. what is going to happen in my expectation in the upcoming few years regarding the implementation of IFRS. And really my answer would be that we heard so many stories and so many dates that it's really hard to predict what's going to happen. But based on these staff papers that the SEC just issued, it seems like that this condorsement approach might be a likely way, that they are going to complete these joint projects. There are these 4 projects that they are really focusing on right now, completing those, maybe complete a few others, and then the FASB and the ISB just trying to figure out how to incorporate the rest of the standards and really what are the remaining differences. And we see that, and we have seen that in past years, that there are some eliminations of differences between IFRS and US GAAP. So a good example is this pension standard where they are really focusing on eliminating existing differences, or the other area would be financial instruments, where the classification of financial assets and financial liabilities used to be really different between IFRS and US GAAP, and now based on the proposed new IFRS 9 standard, it's a lot more closely aligned. So we see examples of the alignment in the past few years, and that's really my expectation, that we're going to see this gradual movement between the two set of standards until it gets to a close point.
Do you think GAAP is ever really going to go away?
Well, my personal opinion is probably not, because there's, as we mentioned, there's a lot of industry-specific guidance, there's a lot more disclosure requirements, and I'm not really even talking about just the codification itself, but all the additional SEC guidance and industry guidance that is out there that maybe at one point, but at the current status of IFRS and where it stands right now, there's really a big difference between the two.
At the risk of sounding egocentric, just based upon the information given, it seems as though the United States GAAP system is more all-encompassing, more specific, which you've already said multiple times. Why isn't everyone else looking to adopt U.S. GAAP principles instead of us trying to, incorporate the IFRS standards into our system?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, and maybe the answer would be that the cost-benefit analysis, as well as an applicability perspective for certain companies, certain industries, it might not be relevant, or it might be that the significant amount of disclosures that they will need to put together, or the additional guidance that they will need to take into consideration that they didn't have to based on their previous GAAP or IFRS, would put a significant burden on the company. They would need to hire more staff, more accounting people, and it might not improve the quality, the overall quality of the financial statements into a level where it would be worth spending those extra money. And it really leads back, in my mind, to the question of the purpose of those financial statements and the decision makers who are reading those financial statements. Is it really worth to spend that? And I think that's one of the biggest questions of this IFRS US GAAP convergence project, that how can we serve the needs of such different decision makers who are using those financial statements with a global set of standards that is closely aligned. But yeah, I think that's a great question.
What was your toughest adjustment from working in Hungary and the Norfolk office?
What was the biggest difference between the two offices? Yeah. In my mind, the corporate culture at Kpmg is really similar wherever I went. It didn't really matter in which office I was working. The work is really the same. It's really just the people who are obviously different, but besides that, the culture, how people act, the work that we do, it's really similar. It's really similar. The type of works that we did at home was a little different because we did statutory audits here in the U.S. We are not doing that many statutory audits as we did at home. There was a requirement of companies filing financial statements with the Court of Registry above a certain revenue threshold, so that that implied that we had to audit the financial statements of certain companies at a smaller size too.
I have kind of a follow-up question about her question. Would you say that maybe the IFRS standards are on purpose, not too specific, because they have so many countries have to conform to them?
I think that's a very good point. And yeah, I think one of the primary differences between IFRS and US GAAP is that IFRS is more principle-based. I wouldn't say that US GAAP is not principle-based. I still think that US GAAP is principle-based too, with significantly more guidance out there. But IFRS is really principle-based, allowing alternative accounting methods, allowing certain ways. And yeah, there's a wide range of companies that need to adjust to these standards. So I think that's absolutely a very relevant point. Very relevant point.
One of the slides that you had was showing the two major differences between IFRS and GAAP. One was that the IFRS was broad, and the other one said something about conceptual framework in terms of conceptual statements versus conceptual frameworks. What's the difference?
Yeah, very good question. Under IFRS, there's this so-called IFRS framework where you have to, and it ties back again, IFRS being really broad and general in certain areas, that you have to go back to the framework very often as opposed to US GAAP to find answers to your accounting questions. One of the most commonly upcoming question is, what is the asset definition under the framework? What is the liability